the kind of market activity we saw play out on Tuesday's session. We had the week's trade now interrupted by a public holiday midway through. What are your expectations for the trading day ahead?
I think the market has been on an upsurge up until late November, early December. And as you've said, on Monday and Tuesday, we've actually seen some element of profit taking. Our expectations are that as we move towards the end of the year, we may see more activity in terms of profit taking, but also bargain hunters will also be, on the lookout for opportunities to, get in stocks, at bargain prices. But I think the other overriding factor is also the fact that we are now moving into an election year officially in 2013. And that will also be a key factor in terms of determining how investors position themselves ahead of the elections next year.
How are you positioning yourself in the Kenyan market at this stage, Einstein, bearing in mind, as you say, that we're heading into an election here, that coming up in March 2013, but bearing in mind as well that we do have some bargains cropping up?
I think it's always important to have a long-term view, because even after the elections, we still expect activity to prevail in the stock market. I think one of the areas that are really of importance is really the sustainability and the viability of the companies that we are investing in. It's important to look at how the companies that are likely to survive, or rather weather the storms, particularly with regards to the exchange rate fluctuation. We've also seen the economy on a bit of a slowdown. So I think the important thing that we're looking at in terms of positioning is really the long-term outlook for the companies, because we would expect, I would imagine in the short term, that we're likely to have some level of volatility as investors try to determine the outlook in terms of the general election. So I think the important thing is that as much as we expect short-term volatility, it's important to have a long-term view by still considering the long-term perspective for most of the companies that we're investing in.
Let's take a look at some of the share price activity we've been seeing coming through on the back of news-making headlines on that end. Einstein Kihanda was amongst the top 5 biggest losers of the day in Tuesday's session, and this on the back of the fact that we've heard that the company is set to pay 580 million shillings to move families from Olkaria. Of course, it's released details of this planned resettlement of the communities in that area. How have you digested this news? What does this mean for the company and its strategy moving forward?
The major reason why that has happened is that the company needs to invest a considerable amount of resources in geothermal operation, and the Olkaria area is an area where there is a lot of geothermal activity, and therefore the company has had to resort to reclaim or take up some of the land that is already occupied, and have to shift the communities that are in there to alternative areas. Now, knowing how sensitive such an issue would be, the company has therefore had to invest considerably in terms of providing appropriate housing and various community developments in order to ensure that they appease the community. So obviously that is a major expenditure. In fact, initially the expectation was that they would invest about $1 million, but obviously you can see that that has increased significantly. But it is necessary if the company has to invest in more what I would call efficient and cheaper energy sources for the long term. So it is essential, and the company has to invest in that, in addition to other long-term capital projects that require significant investment. So my take on that is that it's something that has to be done if the company has to be able to generate efficient power for the future.
So in your books, Einstein, what investment case does Kenyan put on the table at this stage? Because yes, in the short term, we're looking at this major budget overshoot. But as you say, it's in order for them to invest down the line and invest in their capacity moving forward. So longer term, there is a return on investment to be reaped.
Yes, there is a long-term investment. And looking back historically, over the years, I would say 20, 30 years, there has been a significant underinvestment in the energy sector, and therefore what Kenyan is doing is really trying to catch up with the need for investment. In addition to that, in line with the growth in the economy over the last 10 or so years, the demand for energy has increased significantly, and for Kenya to be well positioned as a significant industrial and manufacturing country, that is necessary. So it is a long-term view, and there really isn't any alternative other than that investment.
Einstein, would you be a buyer of Kenyan at current price levels?
I'd say that at the current, the prices have dropped quite significantly. I'd say I'd be a buyer with the long-term view. I think I would look at it. Although of course it's important also to factor in the fact that there's also government policy because of tariff reviews and such issues. So that is also a factor. But from a price perspective, I think it is an attractive.
It's not the only company, Einstein, that is investing right now for its long-term growth. NIC, we see splurging 740 million shillings on new mobile banking systems. What do you make of that investment that's coming through from NIC?
Yes, NIC had a recent rights issue a few months ago that was quite successful, and part of that was to finance the investment in a system. This is a system that is also used by other banks like KCB, CFC Stanbic, and also we've also seen the central bank also investing in that system. And what it will do for NIC Bank is that it will enable it to launch, go very aggressively into the online banking and internet banking, and also position the bank as a key player, in the banking sector in the country. So I think it's also an indication that the company wants to position itself as a very key player in the financial services sector, in addition to diversifying into other areas, because initially it was just an asset finance institution, and now it's moving on into corporate banking, treasury management, and that. So it's a long-term investment, and it's going to pay in over the years.